Nigani oge mabinas ndishina kaz atek dotem mikizi zaganinge nindonji mashkone ganing we kawi pa jang kipit bach mogmen ja nishna bek kchag ogi kendana wa goka kat bach mot mitashkanin we ni nacham genin we chba machan misgo e chwe ksatoan genin cha chagagi gitoan we te bachmoin kainin gaganiunim gagionim se ashna magwek pionja magan wega wit bachmoto wogo goega maznak zat kawini no ma mitashma wekata ekutoan. Well, what I said in Ojibwe is the elders of my time told me these stories and were amalgamating them, fact-finding the history of the lake and history of the Ojibways of Eagle Lake. And also, the elders never lied. They spoke from here, not up here. And what about, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm not fabricating it. It was done through tradition, passed on from generation to generation. There were over 50 elders that I spoke of. My grandparents, my parents, and a lot of people tell their stories to another person and they don't listen. But I was fortunate enough at 16 to start talking to the elders of my time. Oh, we'll go across. Okay. In this area here, back in the bush, there's graves back there. One of the person that told me that was Suzuki Albert Skye, and then give Tabines to Fred Pitchenese. There's Skye graves, they said it was up here. They used to guide for century. We stayed in a guiding shack by one of the islands coming in, and there was old timers in a guiding shack. Ed Pitchenese, Wisigachon, Harry Pitchenese, Bashins, Fred Indian too was in there. Gintrago Navigation Kaza. And then also sometimes Raymond Moss was another rookie guide at the time. And then myself, we used to guide here, and I listened to the old timer stories there, the ones I just named. And Tony Adams was another one that was there, and I think Joe Nabish towards the end of his guiding career. And they used to tell all kinds of stories of things that happened here. And Donnie was another one that was another rookie at the time, and he must have gathered a lot of information from there. And the thing about this place is when you go inland, like I said over there, you're gonna encounter cut out areas. And I think just a little ways you could see the where they almost cut in there and disturbed the graves that are here. So, well, let's move on to the next spot. Cultural area. The reserve, the First Nation owned this. And the area shouldn't be cut over. Like the purpose of the camp is to acquire outdoor life skills, and also the old cultural values that the Ojibwe people used to have. They set gill nets and they hunt. And without it, without the trees and the other undergrowth, the moose, there's no moose, very scarce in this area. If you drive on the logging roads up here, which will show you the next stop, a lot of hunters come across this area to hunt moose. Even southern Ontario camps are moose camps along the moose habitat, and they don't stand a chance to reproduce or grow. I mean, there should be a moratorium on the moose for maybe 5 years to let it regenerate. And the deer, there's hardly any deer too in there because the wolves have taken over, and also bear taking moose caps, and so there's no and then man, which is the most dangerous predator of all. They deplete the moose supply, deer supply, and then they blame it on the wolves and bear. So they have to blame something. And I'm glad to be part of this project to show people some sensitive areas which are not supposed to be cut over, and graves, before I go on to the next world. The Pitcheneses and Nabishes, there was a big village in there. Now, where we're gonna go, the Sioux came in from that way. They surprised the village here. And who was left in the village were women, children, and elders. And they massacred every one of them. Now see this little landmark. The women were staked to their privates for everybody to see. All the way around there. And that's where the, Wabigon, they annihilated some of the war parties that took place there. Rock Lake, Pitchenese, when he was small. Old man Ed Brown, that was his name, saw the Ojibways and Sioux battle And this area all over is a sensitive area for the Ojibwe people and the fallen warriors that took place. And in the falls, there's a couple of graves on your left-hand side when you go in from here, and those are Pitchenese's graves. And then this area in Gulf Falls is called Pitchenese. That means Smooth Rock Falls, not in Gulf. And every time I come here, I always think about my grandmother that told a story here called Skummin Redberry or Raspberry in Skummin. And then Ginjagunab used to live here too, Fred Indian. And those are the other original inhabitants of the area. But the massacre took place in that village over there. You could see the rock wall. And there's a little, there's a road that goes up here, and a fork up here that goes across the creek. And on top of the hill, you could see the kind of clearing where the village used to be. And like I said, I'm not making this up. I've heard my elders of my time spoke about this place. And the clearing over there, it's called Winiskuzage. That means where the four winds meet. And I'll show you another place where they put tobacco. They had pictographs on that narrows, but the weather, the rock fell down with the pictographs. I know we used to camp out here too when we were picking rice. A young couple that was fleeing the war parties coming in. This is a waterway that connects Wabigun. So anyway, there was a young couple coming in, and when they ported quickly, they came upon an old man up here, and they asked him, "Aren't you a little bit worried about the Sioux, Pawanag?" He says, "Don't worry about me." And they said, which way would be the fastest to go to get away from the Sioux? So he pointed in that direction where we came in from, and also put tobacco by the narrows. He told them that way the spirits will keep you from not getting caught. So anyways, they did that, and he also gave them a direction where to paddle, putting tobacco where they went. So they followed the direction the old man gave them, and he says, "I'll meet you guys in the middle of the lake where there's a rock. So the young couple, they kind of look at the old man and how else can he travel? So anyway, so they did. And they did what the old man said. So they came across the opening of the big lake and paddled straight. And they seen somebody sitting on the rock reef. They call that Manito Minisinabic. And so they paddled near it, near the rock. Sure enough, when the old man was sitting with a blanket over him like this, and he told the young couple, "What took you guys so long?" And then he pointed again towards the Hudson Bay post where there would be safety. And they did. That's where the main Ojibwe war party was. And that's where my ancestors lived. And this story is recanted a lot of times by my grandmother and some other elders that I've came across. And it's called The Legend of Eagle Lake, Mikizizagegan. And I didn't make that up either. And somebody experienced that phenomenon where they come across a spirit and guided them through the war zone, so to speak. And with the value tobacco, putting to appease the spirits that are there. So they traveled safely across the war zone to be safe in the Ojibwe camp. And this is where another major battle took place, and the Ojibways won that. Like the fleeing Ojibways were comprised of Labishas and Pitcheneses, and they all gathered at the Hudson Bay post to make a final stand, and they made it, and that's where they defeated us. So, and Fairbout's Peninsula, some of the Sioux warriors fled towards that, and they were killed by the Ojibwe pursuing them, and they captured 3 Sioux chiefs. They killed 2 of them, and they let go 1 to tell what happened to the war parties. And that was the custom back then. What happened to the Sioux war parties, and another person would go over there, or vice versa. If Sioux war party defeated the Ojibwe, 1 warrior would come to tell what happened to them. So that was the custom. And both warring nations, they give no reason why they go to war, just for the sake of war. Another story that the Ojibwe people of my time told me, I asked why did they fight, and they say for the sake of fighting. It doesn't make sense. And this place has some spirits. Sometimes I put tobacco on that rock, on top that big rock, just to appease the spirits and that, and and this is what the young couple did. And over years, this I'm passing on this story to the next generation. This old man that was seen here and guided the young couple safe passage through the war zone. And I didn't make up that story either, and it just comes from here, from my ancestors that told me here. And I didn't make it up either. So, it is important for the younger generation to hear the elders, the real history that took place, not propaganda. Now, propaganda is also what Hitler did, the super race. And it's evident in the First Nations too. The controlling people in power, they use propaganda to gain power. And it's evident everywhere. And the people looking in are the ones that will tell the truth. Like the story itself comes to a big circle. And like the elders say, one day the Indian Anishinaabe nation will rule the earth again. Not in our time, we won't see it, but they will rule again. So this is what these elders told me. And I was lucky to have spoken to them. And this area too, there used to be a trapping shack there owned by one of the elders, medicine man that used to be there, Fred Indian, and he said the same thing here, what massacre took place. And he didn't say where in this area, he never told the exact location because of what happened to the rock painting back there, vandalism. You'll find some people rummaging around and take a sacred item, like a pipe bowl, sacred item, and take it back to the States or their home. Non-indigenous people, and it is very nice to travel this lake, and it has a lot of stories. And I wish I would have listened more, of the elders of my time that wanted to share their stories. Today, very few people use tobacco and give it to an elder to tell them something or for an exchange. And that was done a long time ago. Tobacco was used. Not this type of tobacco. The native indigenous people made tobacco or grew tobacco from the state. And this area too was used for spawning fish. There used to be a camp there, and they used to have spears to kill the fish. Now, with technology and that, We have nets and hooks to catch the fish like this. Nets, not the spears they used a long time ago. And we also have depth finders that tells us where the rock piles are. Long time ago when I used to guide with the old timers of this area, they used to show me where the rocks are. And I said, how can they know there's a rock underwater? When I was 16 years old. You know, go around and there's a big rock there. Wow. Long time ago too, this lake fluctuates up and down. And then when it fluctuates down, you see the rocks come up, and that's how they learn the rock piles. And so to make things easy for you as a guide, they tell you these islands, there's graves in there. And over the years, the Ojibwe nations that were camped out and they're buried the dead here. And also on the road by Bear Narrows, there's a fork. There's a big ridge where the elderly people from this area, well, there's a big hills where they went to die, will themselves to die. And that ridge, that big ridge is forbidden to go up there because of that. So this area here, that's full of graves, the islands anyways. And just before you get to the First Nations, Eagle Lake, where Eagle Lake is situated, that first island, okay, and then there's some more islands behind. They found a skeleton there back in the 60s, and it wasn't from our time. It was from the Sioux Ojibwe Wars. One of the person was killed there, and they reburied the skeleton, the remains. And like I said, the journey of the couple that we're supposedly tracing right now traveled by canoe, birch bark canoe, during the Sioux Ojibwe Wars. So anyways, where they supposedly stopped and rest for the night, they were tired from paddling from where we were in Gulf Falls, Saskatchewan. So the next stop was where my grandmother told me where they briefly slept, and you could hear the people, the Sioux and Ojibwe fighting on the shorelines of where we started out from today. One of the areas that they were kind of tired when they reached this spot here, and they fell asleep. That's where they spend the night. That's a long ways to paddle from there. And then like when you're tired, you could still hear the Ojibways and Sioux fighting on the shorelines over here. And well, as my grandmother and the other elders depicted the beach here. That's where the young couple slept at, just that beach there. So that's one area. And then the other one, that little point over there, there's a trapping shack there by Morris Land and Chenangish, they call it. He owned this area, trap line. This one, another skirmish took place here where we launched during the Sioux-Ojibwe Wars, and this was recanted by the guides that I worked with, the elders of my time, while we wait for the camp owner to come. They started talking, or sometimes we cast the bay for muskie, and they started talking, and then when sometimes there would be 3 boats here on the dock to take the guests back and some of the supplies, and they talk about this place, and I guess the Sioux caught up to the Ojibwe here and killed some of the warriors here. And back in the where the First Nations is situated, the main where Mitchell Lands lived, that's where another skirmish up on top of the hill there took place, and where the Walmsley saw live. And like I said, I didn't fabricate this. This was told to me by my elders of that my time, and I'm happy to share this story to be passed on to the next generation. And I'm glad there's a young person from my First Nations with me hearing this, and he'll probably pass on to his next generation coming up. And there's a few young people that take part in this kind of ventures, and I've come across some, and they go back home and they will do the work that's required of them to pass the stories of their areas, of the proud Ojibwe nations, whether it's a song that you teach a young person, and then they teach another one in their areas to sing that certain song. And that spirit rock that I'm talking about was sung by my dad, and then during the course of the powwows that I've been to, I've heard that song, and then the elder that sang that song, he's gone now. He gave it back to Eagle Lake, and that elder is called Bud Friday. He used to sing that song pertaining to that rock. And I'm glad he gave it back. And I know the song too, so maybe I'll sing that song on the next footage of the video we're shooting. And it's like I said, it's an honor to teach young people, and that was my goal all life, to teach young people. And I've been a teacher, and so is my wife, is a teacher, and she enjoys teaching the future, she says. And we're in the twilight in our career. We're going to end up where we started from it, and we had a grateful career in teaching. And this is part of taking you guys out in the lake, sharing my story and putting it on record and having fun doing it. That's the first time I've come across a drone and new technology. Okay, we ended off around Froghead Bay. Of the story we were following, my grandmother, my mom and dad, and elders of my time told me of the young couple fleeing the Sioux war parties and a massacre that took place in Gulf Falls, and the couple met an old man there, and the old man gave them directions where to go for safety. And out there, out in the lake, we're going to be visiting areas where sensitive spots are, and this place where we're standing is the place where the Ojibwe defeated the Sioux. Mostly Skies had a village there before the Hudson Bay Post was established. And to make the story short, the Sioux were pursuing all kinds of people this way, Ojibways. And at the same time, the story goes, the young couple that were fleeing, they were supposed to meet the elderly gentleman that they seen at the falls in the middle of the lake. So as the young couple paddled out towards the middle of the lake, they seen something sitting on an rock. They call that Spirit Rock now, and they paddled towards it. And sure enough, they as they're near it, there was that old man that they seen in Gulf Falls. And Nongum manito minasanabakisan kate Mishmag vacation occasion a matabinut, and the guy was smiling at them and said, "What took so long?" And then they placed the tobacco there, and the old man smiled and pointed this way where we're standing now on the lake, and That's where you wanna go, they told. So anyways, the young couple didn't look back as the and asked the old man again, what about you? Don't worry, I'm fine. That's what he said in Ojibwe. Kinoago man ke wekpijin. So anyways, they paddled this way. And they seen the Ojibwe camp. And that's where they know they were in safety now. But the question, the young couple, how did that old man travel? Long time ago, the Ojibwe had powers, and that's the only explanation I could give you guys. Kimanda was the young man nishna bek. Min kega ketot ko, kagi pizendago. They had powers. That's what I just said. Anyways, this spot was about 500 to 700 Ojibwe warriors gathered for the Sioux, which was a number maybe about 200 to 300. Now, there was decoys on the beach here, on this spot, and they were walking around looking as if nothing happened, not alarmed. So anyways, when the Sioux War party came, the decoys seen them, but they still acted like nothing happened. And then when the war party came closer, they ran in the bush here. Okay, the main war party back there was packed with Ojibwe warriors. And then you could hear, I guess, the Sioux getting off the canoes. We'll make short work of them. Will get done early. So they ran after the people that ran in the bush. And they seen tents in here too. So anyways, there was a well-devised ambush here. And when they ran in the bush, they were met with heavy onslaught of Ojibwe warriors. Now most of them, maybe 3/4 of them were done in here, and the remaining ones fled across the bay here, Faribault Peninsula, they say. And the Pitchenese, when they were traveling, they portaged that area, Faribault, that little narrow spot that portage. And they also found an arrowhead dating back to BC there. Now getting back to the story, the Ojibwe people disposed of the Sioux down that way. And they captured 3 Sioux chiefs, and they brought them back here. Now one of these big pines, one of these big pines, that's where they executed 2 of them. And one of them was spared to tell of the what happened to the Sioux War party. And he was let go, and that was the way of the Ojibwe people. Sioux people and Ojibways, they were 2 warring nations. They didn't have to give you a reason why they're declaring war on you. I mean, you could look at them the wrong way, and that could be means you're gonna go to war with them. And that's how the Ojibwe were too. Like they were warring nations. I mean, you look at them if you were down the states the wrong way. Okay, well, let's go. Drop your gloves and let's go. So, anyways, that's the story on this. One of these pines. That's where they executed the two Sioux chiefs, and this area was later, when the fur trade came, the village of the here, mostly Skye people, they turned it into Hudson Bay Post. They had stockades in here, buildings, and a murder took place here too, between the two companies, as told by my grandmother. An indigenous person owed money to the company, Hudson Bay Company, and he wanted to use the birch bark canoe as collateral. So the canoe was sitting there, and then the Northwest Company came by and took the canoe, and the Hudson Bay staff ran after these guys and told them to leave the canoe alone, and a fight ensued, and one of the Northwest Company guys was McConnell was killed, and today there's not much left in here, and back in 1935-36 there was a reporter, W. Howell of Dryden Observer, that wrote an article on of the massacre that took place here, recanted by an elder of the time. And William Skye was present. His nickname was William Shakespeare. And War Cloud, which was his brother, was with him. Cuisanes was his Indian name, and his English name was Leonard Sky, and like I said, this place in Ojibwe was called Kamatabimuk, where the road comes to a clearing, which is the lake Kamatabimuk, and now nothing is very much left in there, just a commemorative of the Hudson Bay Post plaque. And also there's a Pitchenese grave and a little situated over there. And like I said, the Pitcheneses were instrumental too in traveling. They had trap lines towards the bay, Vermilion Bay, and Dryberry Lake was one of the trapping area where they had, and then Hawk Lake and those little Stout Lake, and there's portages that you could buy there, and Blind Bay. That's where most of the area goes. Like go into Blind Bay, Piscamung Brook, and all that area. That's where they travel. And Abishas, they resided all along the shorelines, and they were here too at the same time. And Skies Nabishes and Pitcheneses were the original settlers of Eagle Lake. And like I say, we're going to go to these spots, and Meridian Bay was another area where my dad had a trap line. William Skye passed it on to my dad, and to us trap lines are more than trap lines, it's a family history. And a lot of the areas that were once indigenous trap lines are clear-cutted, and there's nothing left. Just looks like farmland out there. As I told some of the M&R people, maybe we should start planting wheat, oats and barley down there. You guys did the clearing. And with all that clearing going on, clear cutting, I mean, it's only fair that far about peninsula should be left alone for heritage site, because a lot of the Sioux people fell and should be graveyard, and here it should be a heritage site too, because there's graves that are here a long time ago by the indigenous people. And like I was saying, the old buildings that were here when this W.W. Howell back in 1935-36 came, a lot of the native indigenous people used this site for blueberry picking, and further up the road, up to Gatawat, Yishinkate, that's another blueberry site where the people use to pick blueberries, and blueberries were abundant at this place long time ago. And like I said, Fairbout is only fair to put it as a heritage site with all the clear cutting that is done in our traditional area. Yeah. Okay, from where we just come from at the Hudson Bay Post, it's over there just a little ways, and that's where some of the braves, Sioux braves, went in the bush here, a short portage used by the Ojibwe people, and also right around the corner, the river itself that leads to the English river system, and then majority of the war party went in the bush here to be annihilated by the Ojibways. And elders from my time, like the Pitcheneses, they used this portage to travel rather than paddle all the way around. And one of the major canoe routes, highways of the Ojibwe people of Eagle Lake. And they had to come to the Hudson Bay Post during the fur trade to trade fur. And this is one of the major arteries, they call it. And when I listened to my elders, they didn't make up the stories or make up anything just like me. I didn't make it up. I listen. And that's part of the oral tradition of the Ojibwe. And it's handed down from generation to generation. And like what I'm doing, I'm putting it on record for all to hear, future generations, and then the generations to come of the Ojibwe people. And I hope this helps out to pass on the stories. We didn't have videotapes and a big boat to cart us around. So, like, I mean, it makes much easier to access the point, let's say, Ingal Falls, Roshquap Kitchun, and Migizizi Bihmagwek in less time. And then we didn't fly up in the air to take pictures, and cameras that will record the areas and stuff like that. And I hope Ryan and Kelsey will get credit for documenting my story, and then the places of interest that we're visiting. And for me, it is an honor to be working for people that are projecting stuff into the future. And this area that is the narrowest part of the isthmus, they call it, peninsula, fairbout, and they want to cut this big area. And when you go back into the south side of the lake, where all the trap lines are, there's not a tree that's been desecrated. It looks like farmland over there. I told the MNR people that were doing a workshop in our reserve, we might as well start planting wheat, barley, and oats back in there instead of trapping and hunting. I mean, for a trade-off, they should just leave this peninsula alone, because it has a lot of history. It has graves and people long time ago that were portaging here, camping out here, just like back then. You don't hear machinery cutting. It's pristine wilderness, and it should be left alone, where wild animals are wild animals, and birds are birds, and fish are fish, and people interacting with nature. And there are other interested parties that are interested in preserving this peninsula. They want that left alone. I'll miss it. Okay. dark graves in here, but you could feel the energy, as Kelsey said, of fallen people that are here. And I could sense when I walked in there, I could sense the energy of people, in the ground. And Western civilization, they call us crazy when we say that. They might put us into the loony bin. If you come across a vision, you see something, we're crazy, they say. Well, we're not crazy, we just got psychic powers. And native people are gifted for that purpose. A long time ago, our ancestors were gifted and they had powers. And like I told you about the, you hear that? I know we're trying to protect the peninsula. Right above us. I'll put tobacco out for you too.
Sounds young, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, we know that we're going to protect our old back there, like the pine, birch, and they also carry medicine. And especially old trees, they accumulate that medicine. Now they want to cut that. I mean, they could use it as a preserve where people, indigenous people, could gather their own medicine here. There's lots of medicine you could see. And they want to destroy that. I mean, we're not, we are experts in our own environment. And the part of the puzzle is broken, the rest crumbles. Like this tree, it's pretty old. It's got medicine. Same with the birch and these willows that grow alongside them. They're all connected to Mother Earth. And when you get Mother Earth mad, like it's just like sticking some pins into her, mining companies, and then scraping her back raw when the machines go and cut the area here. And that's the comparison that I'm using. I mean, how'd you like it if somebody scrape you with a knife on your skin? And this is why we try to protect Mother Earth. And we were told to keep Mother Earth. And we're not doing a very good job of it. Pollution there, ozone layer depletion, The Arctic ice melting. No. Okay, we've seen enough anyway. Like I felt some vibes. So does my colleague there. That there were some fallen people, their graves. And on the portage, the eagle spirit spoke to us that he's telling us to keep this peninsula pristine like it was a long time ago. Like I mean, people, we had a spiritual awakening over there. The eagle spoke to us to keep this place pristine. How me say? Okay, traditional medicine, wike, like it's in here, and the old white spruce, the gum, it has to reach that maturity to produce that medicine. And birch, I seen some chaga on the birch, and chaga is used for medicinal purposes for many ailments. The tea from there, and the old birch has to reach that maturity to produce that medicinal effect. So Faribault has lots of old trees, birch and white spruce, that we came, and like I said, all the other places that we used to pick medicine have been clear-cutted, and there's nothing left standing in some places, all in the name of money. And even the, like I said before, even the eagle spirit has spoken at the portage to protect the place. And we didn't choreograph the eagle, he just spoke. At the right time, right place. How me what? Okay, old growth, as we were at the southernmost tip of Faribault, and you can see somebody camped in here. And old growth, I'm gonna talk about old trees, like I said, medicinal purposes. And some of these trees are 1,000 years old. The white pine that you see along the shoreline, and inside you got white spruce, and they're big too. And the trees are maybe 1,000 years old, and the old growth they're gonna kill. And it takes about over 100 years, or even for these trees to be sustained. Now, new growth doesn't have that medicinal purposes, so they're gonna cut down old trees that were here 1,000 years. And like I said, repeatedly, so people will understand that all in the name of money, industry, forest industry, they're going to destroy the old growth. Same with the mining companies south of here. they start digging. It's just like putting needles in Mother Earth and then cutting down trees, scraping Mother Earth's back with a razor blade. That's a comparison that I use. And this is medicine area. We used to pick wike here too, so. And a lot of the old growth trees have medicinal value, which they cut at the southern limits on our trap lines, or trap lines that was used by indigenous people. And now you could take young people out there. I mean, what is there to teach them? How to plant wheat, barley, and oats? That's how it looks over there. And you don't hear a wolf or a loon sometimes. Only machinery cutting down trees. And our people of the land. They relate to the land, whether to fast, to survive, or nutritional value from the animals. Everything is connected. When one piece of the puzzle is gone, the rest will crumble. As you can see, climate change, ozone layer, and each year more and more the temperature is getting higher and higher. And pretty soon we'll have probably palm trees here. That's how hot some days are. And the drought in the prairies, the melting of the glaciers will produce Lake Agassiz back again. You know, this area will be underwater because of man didn't take care of Mother Earth, because of all in the name of money. And we're going to have a nuclear waste deposit too near our area. And the person presenting said that the canisters that the nuclear waste is contained in will survive the ice age. But he didn't mention second ice age. These canisters will be on top the earth. And what about earthquakes? We're beginning to have earthquakes in our area. And it exerts a lot of pressure, a natural disaster. You know, the disaster in Chernobyl, Japan, you can't even go in that facility. That's how bad the radiation is. And now what's going to happen here if it seeps into the water table? All you'll see here will be all polluted. You know, and the fish themselves, the birds, the animals, pollution. It all has already happened. The paper mill emits mercury into the Wabigoon river system, English river system. And the people downstream, Grassy Narrows, they're affected by the pollution. They have Minamata disease, and the mercury is hard to clean up in the water beds, river beds, lake beds. And nuclear waste, it'll be here forever. Our offspring will be the ones that will be suffering. I know I'll be gone. The cameraman will be gone. Kelsey will be gone. our offsprings are the ones that were making decisions for them. But, we're trying to make the right decision to keep the earth as clean as it can get, not polluted.